Hello everybody, Disciple here with Hearthstone Curios. Now the Year of the Mammoth is coming up and we're gonna see a lot of powerful cards in some of the new sets, in addition to a lot of cards rotating out of Standard. With that upcoming rotation, Standard and Hearthstone in general will be changing a ton, so now's a great time to look back at the history of Hearthstone. That's why today we thought we'd take a look at 10 of the most meta-defining cards in Hearthstone's history, and what made them so good. Now keep in mind, we're judging these by how dominant they were in their respective meta, not on a raw power level, so your list could very well be super different and just as correct. So let's get right into it. Now first on the list we have Dr. Boom. Once people realized Dr. Boom was good, it got played in pretty much every single deck. Control decks, mid-range decks, even aggro decks made a lot of effort to slot him in. No matter who you were playing against, you would pretty much always see a lot of the good Doctor come down on turn 7 and ruin your day. So why is Dr. Boom so early on the list and not higher? Well, the fact is, although he was such an insanely good card that got played in a lot of decks, it didn't really change the meta all that much as some of the other cards on this list, since it just got put into every deck, but it was just a good late game threat, pretty much like if every deck played Ragnaros. It didn't really invalidate any of the decks or make one deck incredibly super powerful, it was just a ridiculously strong card that got put into every deck, and so it firmly earns our number 10 spot on the list. Next up, it's Mysterious Challenger. Now Mysterious Challenger single-handedly made Secret Paladin the best deck in the game for quite some time, which is especially crazy considering the deck wasn't even playable at all until Challenger came out. That one card by itself established the best deck in the game for quite some time, and that was totally insane. Now, Secret Paladin wasn't incredibly broken the entire time, since people definitely figured out how to metagame against it and make other good decks that could queue into it, but Challenger definitely warped the format a ton back when the deck had access to all the secrets and the good cards that it needed, so it cemented a spot on the list. Not only could you play on curve every single turn, but your turn 6 swing, and then following that up with a Dr. Boom was just absolutely wild, and your deck had to be able to survive against a Secret Paladin early on to be able to play it. Now at number 8, we have pre-nerf Force of Nature. Mid-range Combo Druid was one of the best decks in the game for a ridiculously long time, and even if another deck became the best, Combo Druid was always still pretty good, and that's all because of Force of Nature and Savage Roar. The combo of those two cards was just way too oppressive. You could die from an empty board at a high life total to the right combination of cards, and if your opponent ever had a little bit of a board, you would just have to constantly fear for your life. And this was back when the deck could play things like Piloted Shredder and Dr. Boom, along with pre-nerf Ancient of Lore and lots of other crazy cards. Combo Druid limited how good Reno Lock and other decks could be, because they could simply kill late game decks from 30 to 0 in one turn with pretty insane consistency, as long as they kept 1 or 2 minions out on the board, or they got an Innervate and were able to double Savage Roar. Combo Druid made aggro better because aggro was pretty good against it, and it made control decks a lot worse, thereby warping the meta quite a bit and earning a solid spot on the list. You guys might remember in the first World Championship when Firebat won, he actually 3-0'd in finals with Combo Druid, and it was probably one of the most boring series of all time because the combo was just so strong. Now number 7, it's pre-nerf Big Game Hunter. Much like Dr. Boom, 3-mana BGH was in a ton of different decks, but unlike Dr. Boom, it actually had a significant effect on the meta and how people did build their decks. Anything with 7 or more attack had to be insanely good to get played, like Dr. Boom or Alexstrasza in Freeze Mage. And when new cards were revealed, whether or not they had 7 or more attack was a huge factor in how good they were, because of them dying to BGH. When things got really crazy, some lists were running double BGH, and some control decks wouldn't even play Dr. Boom, and would play things like Ysera instead just to make it so their opponent's BGH wouldn't have any targets. This obviously ended when BGH was nerfed, and it's very rarely played now outside of maybe a Reno deck, but 3-mana BGH limited the kinds of late game cards that got used or that Blizzard could design, so it definitely belongs on the list. Now 6 is Tunnel Trog. And how much is there really to say on this one? Tunnel Trog started the Great Shaman Renaissance, and it's just a super busted card. A 1-mana 1/3 that gets bigger and bigger is exactly what aggro Shaman needed, and especially when combined with some of the other powerful cards Shaman got afterward, Tunnel Trog really led to making Shaman insanely strong again. It used to be a meme how bad Shaman was and how there were basically 8 classes in Hearthstone, and although that meme has changed over the years to go to Paladin and now to Hunter, it was definitely on Shaman for quite some time, but Shaman became ridiculously busted with all the great aggro tools they were given in the last few sets. Now, Tunnel Trog might not have been the most oppressive card by itself, but without it, Shaman would have never been quite as strong or needed so many cards like Spirit Claws to be nerfed, so Tunnel Trog definitely earns a spot on the list as sort of the flag bearer of Shaman being way too strong in the early game. At number 5, it's Mechwarper. Now, some of you guys might not remember this, but there was a time right after GVG came out when Mech Mage, Mech Shaman, and a couple other variants were at the top of the meta, and that wouldn't have been possible without Mechwarper. Being able to dump your hand of mechs for a super reduced cost is really strong, and the fact that it was a really cheap neutral minion meant that it would be abused by any deck with good enough mech support. Although it's rotated out of standard now, and it wasn't even that good for quite a while before it did, Mechwarper and mech decks dominated the meta for quite a while, so definitely deserves a spot on this list. Mech Mage, if they went second, could coin out a Mechwarper, then play a second Mechwarper on turn 2, and then something else like a Spider Tank to have a ridiculously strong board very early on. Mech decks could just take over way too easily, and it was just a much better form of Zoo at the time with some very strong spells to go with it. Now, coming in at number 4, we have Grim Patron. Even though Patron Warrior didn't have an incredibly high overall win rate on ladder, since only very skilled players could play it very well, it was still undoubtedly the most broken deck in the game until the Warsong Commander nerf. The deck could make an incredible number of patrons, kill with a huge Frothing Berserker, draw tons of cards, easily wipe the board, and do much more, even gaining 20 or 30 armor in a single turn if you were up against an aggro deck. Patron Warrior made a bunch of decks unplayable because of how fast it comboed and how good it was against token decks, and it was also the most played deck for quite a while since it was both fun to try to combo and was just insanely strong. Luckily for the metagame, Blizzard did nerf Warsong Commander, which made a lot of the crazy combos impossible, but while Grim Patron was at its peak, it was a card that single-handedly took over the meta, and so definitely deserves a high spot on the list. Number 3 on the list is Small Time Buccaneer. From after the release of Mean Streets of Gadgetzan to until it was nerfed, Small Time Buccaneer completely demolished the meta in aggro warrior, aggro rogue, and worst of all, aggro shaman. Together with patches, Buccaneer was played in a lot of different decks and was just insanely strong in all of them. As long as you could equip a strong weapon on turn 1 or 2 to combo with it, it was just insanely broken. When Blizzard makes ultra efficient neutral 1-drops that work so well together with other cards, in this case weapons and patches, they usually get played an insane amount, and we'll see another one of those in just a little bit. The meta before the nerfs was almost entirely Reno decks to try and counter the aggro, or just decks that played Buccaneer, and the nerfs were definitely very good for the meta so that it wouldn't stay too stale until the next rotation. At number 2 on the list, it's Unleash the Hounds. While there were a ton of crazy cards in the alpha and beta, Unleash probably takes the cake since it was horribly broken, not just once, but 2 times. The 1-mana version made a super broken OTK deck possible, and the 2-mana Hounds version let people draw pretty much their entire deck when comboed with the 2-mana Starving Buzzard. Either way, Unleash the Hounds dominated a lot of Hearthstone's earliest days, and so any list would probably be incomplete without it, since it had to be nerfed several times to make those Hunter decks not just completely overbearing on the meta. The final card, coming in at number 1 on our list as the most meta-defining card of all time, is the Undertaker. Before the nerf, it was the most broken 1-mana neutral minion you could imagine, and it just let you win games for free pretty much all the time. It could get so big so fast, and it was just such a broken card that pretty much every deck at the time was either an Undertaker deck, or it was a deck running tons of early removal specifically to kill Undertaker. You would play it in a deck that wasn't even aggressive, like Undertaker Priest, which would also play things like Zombie Chow, just to get their own Undertaker big enough to try and kill your opponents. It's really unlikely that we'll ever see a card more broken or meta-defining than Undertaker, and Undertaker Hunter was definitely the highest win rate a single deck has ever had that was played by a majority of the player base, according to Blizzard, and nothing really comes close to competing with this card for the #1 spot on the list. So those are 10 of what we think are some of the most meta-defining cards in Hearthstone's history. There are definitely a lot of decks that have been strong in the past, and a lot of cards that are very strong in them. Something that comes to mind is something like Gadgetzan Auctioneer, but we don't feel like those have really formed the meta in a way more than any of these 10 cards on the list have. But as always, I'm interested to hear what you guys have to think. Anyway, thanks so much for watching. I'd love it if you guys would subscribe to see videos in the future, and I'll see you next time. Peace.